Chapter 172. The crew clumped around the Gatling gun like ants around jam fallen from a scone. We could hear vulgar laughs from here, though the general noise remained low. They didn't seem to be in a hurry. "I bet I could pick off the Gatling servants from up here," Felicia whispered from the side. The two of us had taken the balcony directly facing the horde as the defender's best marksman. I considered her offer but declined quickly. "We want them to commit first. This gun is powerful, but it will not pierce half a meter of sandbag." "What's a meter?" "A slightly larger yard. You Europeans have the weirdest quirks." I refrained from defending myself before this grave accusation and focused on the enemies I would actually have to shoot. They were deploying at the edge of the village, well within range of even the most antiquated rifle. I considered using this opportunity to open fire and realized that I had no objective reason not to shoot now. "They are disrespecting us, let's give them a welcome," I announced, and lined up a man who seemed to be giving orders. The detonation made a few of the men jump. The officer slumped in his saddle. A few of the riders did not resist the call of violence. Despite the objection of a few men in charge, a few split from the group and charged us with screeching war cries. Just as Felicia shot another, I pushed her head down and warned everyone. "Stay in cover." The Gatling gun opened on us. We hunkered down before the incoming storm of lead. Except, it didn't exactly arrive. Bullets dug into wood and the piled furniture behind, starting with our balcony and then to the barricaded windows around. Although it was quite impressive, it represented only 3 to 4 bullets per second, mostly centered around the same target. The deluge of fire we had faced at the brothel had been far scarier, if only because of its unpredictability. Meanwhile, the furious attackers I expected to see mowed down reached the base of the store and opened fire on us as well. It was a frustrating development. "Never mind. Felicia, my dear, give those amateur artillerists what for." I did not have to ask her twice. A single shot took care of the servant moving a lever. His companion dove into cover and we had free rein to engage. "Fire at will, lads," I roared. "And lasses," Felicia corrected to my dismay. This is not what my father's tales prepared me to expect. Nevertheless, I peeked over the barrier and gave the riders a taste of my revolver. Just as before, the thugs were not affected by deadly wounds. They kept shooting and growling with no regard for their leaking lifeblood, to the extent that I started ignoring the dying foes in favor of the livelier ones. It was fortunate that the very elixir that gave them bravery beyond death also diminished their intellect. Many stabbed their guns forward when they shot despite the absurdity of such a movement, ruining their aim. Others even swiped at the air as if fighting invisible enemies. Eventually, my companions' concentrated fire diminished their numbers just in time for reinforcements to arrive. The crew was trickling into town without organization, driven forward in a herd by the most determined specimens. I made good use of a provided rifle, taking them down with great alacrity and passing the empty weapons to Annie. The woman passed me fresh weapons before scurrying back into the room where she and other determined women reloaded them as fast as they could. Our sustained fire finally made a dent in the enemy's determination. The most sober of them all dismounted and scrambled into houses, seeking cover. The return fire increased. At least the Gatling gun had fallen silent. The minute I spent shooting left and right felt like an eternity, dear reader. The dull thuds of bullets impacting our defenses echoed the buzz of those flying over our heads. More than once, dust and debris flew into my face, but I was well protected thanks to our preparation. Others were not so lucky. I heard a cry from one of the windows. I had no time to offer help, however, as we were at risk of being overrun. Already I could hear the bangs of men trying to break in. The tail of the formation had not yet entered the village. I needed a few more seconds. By my side, Felicia busied herself taking out the most dangerous of foes, those who actually took the time to aim. Her sense of priorities impressed me from a civilian and a woman. It allowed me to stay focused on the easier targets, downing one man after the other. Whenever possible, I even aimed for the head. Such an unwise course would be the very height of stupidity in any other circumstances, Yet the urgent situation and abundance of ammunition forced my hand. It appeared that most of the crew had entered the trap when my hand was forced by fate in the form of a great crash coming from downstairs. "It's time!" I screamed, and rushed through the window and our stunned reloading assistant on a mad dash downstairs. As I moved down, I took in the alarming sight in front of me in a flash. Walker was here, standing over a dead guard. The very man I beat to a pulp had a gun and a red face still covered in bruises. His malevolent eyes lit up as soon as he saw me, and he turned himself to take me down. I had my revolver in my holster and would not draw in time, so I did the next best thing. I jumped, feet forward. "Have at you!" My boots impacted with the loud's surprised mug and I rolled before he could react, soon jumping onto the detonator. No time. I could hear other foes breaking their way in. The lever depressed under my weight. I turned on myself and blocked my ears. Walker stood back up, blood dripping from the cut lip. He snarled as he aimed his revolver at me. I could see the rust on the side of the barrel, dear reader. I could count the hairs on his knuckles. Before he could pull the trigger, the world went upside down. I was ever so grateful for protecting my ears, because even with both indexes firmly rammed in the outer canals, I almost went deaf from the terrible fracas. The series of explosions rocked the very earth, making my chest vibrate and clench painfully. How fragile we all were in front of the wrath of chemistry itself. Fortunately, this mighty force had been harnessed by our side, and the dust settled over a silent ghost town. Walker stumbled to his feet. I drew my weapon and pulled the trigger, only for the hammer to click on an empty cartridge. Damnation! I had forgotten to reload. Cursing my foolishness, I assessed the situation in an instant and dove through the nearest door and into the room where we had stored all our supplies. A bullet smashed into the far wall, shot by my pursuer. I hid behind a crate just as he bull rushed in after me. "Come on out, you lily-livered coward!" he bellowed. I ignored the slight on my honor. I would not forfeit my life for the sake of bravado. Too much hung in the balance. I crawled around the room, between barrels and bags. As for Walker, he moved about the room with nervous energy, screaming as he went. "Come out and face me." I realized that he could probably hear very little, yet sneaking on him was risky because he turned on himself quite often. He seemed both drunken and nervated at the same time, which I understood. There was no need to hurry. Time was on my side in this confrontation. I patiently reloaded while following the man's progress through the room. When he stumbled, I stood up. "Ha ha! Got. Walker's step back turned into an awkward tumble when his foot slipped on the expanding pool of blood under his feet. He wobbled and fell against the wall. His weapon fell in a clatter. Pain is not useless," I said, though I doubted he could hear me. Pain is the body's way of telling us that it has reached its limits. You are not transformed into gods when you quaff the vile mixture, you merely forget that you are still humans. He finally found the glass shard deeply embedded in his flank, the very same that he displaced with every step. The very same that was killing him now. Walker collapsed just as Honor walked in. "Flawless victory, monsieur?" "Not quite, old fellow. I believe I made a hole in my trousers. I am confident we can mend the situation, monsieur. In the meanwhile, Felicia reports that the enemy captain is attempting to crawl away. Then let us give him a hand. Of the devastation outside, I can in truth say very little. A more lyrical soul than my own could have filled pages of notebooks with flowery descriptions and sobering metaphors. Unfortunately, I must admit that words mostly failed me when I came out and the result of my plan appeared through a cloud of dust and soot, lit by the pale morning sun of autumn. I will spare you the more gruesome details, dear readers, but know that in this moment I realized that mankind had bridged the gap between act of God and act of war, and that if this was the result of today's technology, I feared what fruit we would harvest even half a century from now. Those of our foes left whole stared unblinking at the heavens, bloody tears trailing down their cheeks. It was a strange possession that walked through the remains of the cataclysmic event, and it was in silence that we found our fallen enemy. He reacted on the spot. You have no idea who you are messing with, you imbeciles. Do you know who I am? The man on the ground roared and spat, but even a child could see the terror in his eyes. His mewling threats are the last defiance of a man with more anger than dignity. I know you are a member of the family behind the crew. I care little about you. I want to meet Mr. Winters. Mr. Winters? How do you know? I know a great many things. My knowledge is extensive, sir, quite unlike my patient's. You will provide me with his location now or I shall have to extract it out of you. I don't know where he lives really. We meet him at the bottom of the mountain and trade the elixir for. The man paled, and suspicion filled my heart. For what, sir? Answer me, I say. Food. Silver. Captives, sometimes. You despicable monster. Felicia screamed. How could you? Annie whispered, and her horror needled me more than I could ever say. Honor was also affected, for the man took out his monstrous knife from its sheath and waved it around, ready to bleed the villain like a stuck pig. Taking it upon myself to be the voice of reason, I halted his gesture before he could give our prisoner problem the Gordian treatment. Hold on, dear Honor. You must not. We will not just stab him in the streets like savages, or worse, socialists. We must not allow our anger to rule us or we will have become like those we fight. Justice, not blind vengeance, must guide our actions. Very well said, monsieur. But then, what should we do? I picked up another slice of roast and sat down on a nearby rock, watching our foe's body swing in the wind. Hanging certainly brought a certain cachet to public execution, I always said. The man had forfeited the path to Mr. Winters' lair, eventually, before accusing me of lying. Apparently, caring little about him would imply that I would forget his crimes. What a peculiar conclusion. I merely meant to say that his demise would not cause me to lose even a wink of sleep. Speaking of sleep, I resolved to talk to my fallen angel before we left. I found her in quiet thought, leaning against a wall in her dusty but nonetheless gorgeous dress. My condolences for the guards we lost today. What? Oh, truth be told, I barely knew many of them. I was passing through. I tend to travel a lot. Oh, I see. I assumed that you were grief. I interrupted myself before I could ruin the mood. My angel appeared wistful and it broke my heart. It was my fault that I had not yet made the world into a place where she could be happy. Never mind that. Then, it is good that you are ready to depart. I am glad that you are used to the rigor of the road. Traveling has its perks. New scenery, new people. I was so happy, for I feared that it would be some time before we could settle down anywhere, not least because I could not see my angel engaged in back-breaking labor on a farm. As much as I respect the occupation and Annie herself, I believed that she was not cut for it. Your words fill me with joy. Then there is just a matter of Mr. Winters and we can leave. Oh, already? And where do you intend to go, Alexander? Imagine, dear reader, a pit filled with frozen water. You are heading back home after a hard day's work, body tired yet soul filled with contentment. Suddenly, I see a liquid splashed where the sun caressed. Suddenly, you are drowning. I was not quite drowning yet, dear reader. I was in the air as the gate opened, subjected to no force but gravity, going nowhere but down. I was slipping from the cliff and the ledge still seemed in range of my grasping hand, but it was all a lie, an illusion. I had no hope. Me? But, wait. We? No? You do not intend to stay? I already told you Oh no. What do you mean oh no? Annie, please. Annie. You are jesting. I am so sorry, Alexander. I forgot that. Oh, I did not mean to play a cruel trick on you. Forgive me if I set the wrong expectation. Wrong expectation? But surely. But why would you leave? I thought we were together. I want to make an honest woman out of you. She looked suddenly afraid, but I didn't want her to be afraid. I wanted her to be happy. I am sorry, Alexander. I do not wish to be an honest woman. Annie, if I failed you in any way. You did not. You were a perfect gentleman and I have no cause for complaints. I must have, or you would not leave me, surely? Give me a chance to understand. What have I done? It is not about you, Alexander. What I want in life is what I have now. Freedom, adventure, something new. I am living how I wish to live, and I will not allow myself to be bound, even by you. I am sorry. I do not understand. My mind refused to accept the evidence. Annie did not wish to be with me. Annie did not love me. For my parents and before, an act of intimacy was the ultimate form of trust, and though I did not begrudge my fallen angel the brevity of our courting, I had assumed that my feelings were reciprocated. It was not the case. She did not wish to be my wife, my other half. Prompting her more about what I had to do scared her and confused me even more, to the point that I slumped against the nearest wall, utterly defeated. Gutted. Drowning. Swallowed by the dark sea of my unrequited affection. She left me no flaw to fix or proof to deliver. Her heart did not need a key, it simply had no door, or at least not for me. I was crushed. I would have preferred it if she had killed this love before it had bloomed its strangling thorns, before it had turned to poison in my heart. I was lost. I left her in a daze. I spent the rest of the evening in a daze. In the morning, I saddled my horse and left with a blank mind, too stunned to even protest Felicia's company. She and Honor trailed me without a word while we followed the path north, where the crew had come from. We walked in single file over mud trampled by 100 horses, all carrion now. I thought I might have munched on something for lunch, but I could not for the life of me recall what. The land was flat here. It was empty and depressing. There were just plains after plains after plains, until we saw it in the late afternoon. Is this what the leader described? I finally asked. We had stopped our horses, so great was our surprise. When he described a mountain, I assumed he was exaggerating, monsieur. I expected a small hill. Everyone knows the land around here is flat. Felicia said without much conviction, and for a good reason. In front of us stood an impossibility. Like an obsidian shard lodged in flesh, a jagged piece of rock emerged from the vast expanse of Kansas almost vertically. The lone mountain pierced the landscape by its presence, and the evening sun dyed the snow at its top a bloody red, never mind that it had not snowed yet. It must have been perhaps 300 meters high, which would not have been much in a mountainous region. Here, the elevation made it properly tortuous. I must be dreaming, Felicia whispered. Monsieur, I suspect that we face some devilry. You are quite correct, Honor. Nevertheless, I knew I would be facing evil the moment I witnessed the effects of that elixir. This changes nothing. We must press on. We approached the edge of the strange rock in silence. We walked the edge for a while before realizing that there was no clear path up, or at least none that would be practical for our horses. We dismounted with some trepidation, then followed a treacherous path that seemed to be carved from the very rock. The stone here was dark and glassy like the corpse of a long-dead volcano. The weather worsened immediately. The cloud above us, so far only threatening, opened to disgorge their cottonous content. The wind picked up. We are not equipped to face bad weather, monsieur. The summit cannot be too far, Honor. We saw it from the bottom. I pray you are right, monsieur, but I do not trust my eyes, and I do not trust this place either. The brave Haitian's concerns were warranted, because our ascent was marred by slippery stone and treacherous fog. More than once, I almost put my foot down only to discover that an entire side of the wall was missing, and that the setting sun reflected on the crystal ice had my sense of perspective fooled. It became so hard that I used the rope I had brought to tie us all together. Alas, it was not enough, for the cold itself became unbearable. My fingers and toes hurt despite the gloves I had. Eventually, a cry from Felicia stopped my progress. Felicia. I am sorry. I can't. Her teeth chattered from the cold. Her lips were blue, her face flushed. Honor was barely better. I stopped then, and came to a realization. As soon as the chase had started, I had stopped thinking about my lost love. All of my life, all of my focus had been dedicated to climbing that damn rock and seeing our crusade against evil to its fateful end. I had forgotten everything in that pursuit. But I would not forget my friends. You too must go back. Monsieur, This is suicide. This weather, it is like nothing I have ever felt before. It must be some powerful voodoo. I know. You believe me? Magic has been proven to exist by the scientific community and the both of us. Sorry, the three of us know damn well that this mountain ought not be here, and yet, despite the adversity, I must forge onward. I shall do so alone. Monsieur. No matter the odds, no matter the costs, a Bengal will not back down in the face of such evil. The time for ruses and stratagems is over. I am facing the unknown with no choice but to carry on, for the enemy is weakened and he might decide to run and start over elsewhere. No, this adversity calls to me. I will continue. I can do it. You appear to be doing fine, sir. Perhaps you have a better constitution. Nevertheless, trust me, honor. I was born for this. The courageous Haitian appeared worried, his concern made even more heartwarming because we had known each other for a short time and, despite the tumultuous events, developed a deep respect for each other. His unwavering support turned my resolve to steel. I would not allow myself to fail, not with such people as he behind me. This led me to Felicia. You two take care of each other and await my return. I will be there shortly. Do you want my rifle? Felicia asked. I prefer to have my own, and besides, it is only so accurate because your hands wield it. She blushed delicately, which should help with keeping warm. As for honor, he pulled his massive knife from its sheath and presented it to me handle first. This is my family's heirloom, monsieur. The handle is gold taken from the flanks of Pic Lazel, while its iron blade was used to shave the island's 7 most cruel slaveholders. I will lend it to you. But I expect you to return it. Shave, you say? I asked with some confusion. He means castrate, Felicia explained in a darkly amused voice. Can't I have it later? Honor and I shared a long glance, a mutual promise that such a terrible tool of justice should never be found in the hand of a woman. Promptly, I detached myself from the rope binding us and moved on while the two trotted back the way we came. The wind seemed to redouble when I kept going, forcing me to shove my gloved hand in my pocket. Strangely, Honor's knife felt warm and the hand holding it less frigid. With my spirits momentarily high, I rushed onward with determination. I knew in my heart that I was running away from my wounded feelings, but I also acknowledged that stopping Mr. Winters was a valid cause. Suddenly, as the wind against me felt like a physical presence, I crossed a threshold. One last step and I was out of the cloud of snow. All around me were black rocks surrounded by a sea of dark clouds. The last rays of the day showed me a strange spectacle the likes of which I had never seen before, and I knew for certain that some terrible magic was at work here. In front of me stood a castle of ancient make, all tall spires and needle-like crenellations. Spiked corbels extended from flanked, small towers and from them hang icicles as sharp as daggers. It was all sharp angles in black stone. It was not a keep, it was a mow. And yet, for all its aggressive appearance, the manor lacked any sort of sensible defenses. Castles back home were honest constructs of solid stones with clear purpose. The edifice in front of me wore its thorns without practicality, like scale mail as a salon dress. The strange impression only accentuated what I perceived as evidence. Just like the mountain, this edifice should never have existed. The architectural style itself was like nothing that could be found on Earth, not to mention that it would take a determined team years to build. I was on my guard from the moment I saw it. I moved forward with determination, however, and reached the door in short order. It was an incongruous set of 2 gates with a heavy knocker. It took me a measure of self-control not to knock to be polite. I let myself in as quietly as I could, and gasped in surprise when I arrived in the lushest, most welcoming entrance I had ever seen. The room itself stretched in a long rectangle, generously lit by candles. A bright fire crackled merrily in the hearth and brought a sudden warmth to the previously frigid temperatures. A table laid in the middle charged with victuals, gold and ruby wine in crystal decanters, and silvery spoons glittering under the lights. Athletic statues lounged or stood on seats here and there. They lent the place a classical atmosphere that I did not trust for a single second. Only a liar and a cheat would use classical statues in a Baroque room in a fake Gothic castle. I did not trust the heat from the fire I felt on my skin, nor the food, nor, even, the statue. When the urge to sit down and relax filled me, I slapped myself awake. When hunger and thirst harried me, I bit my tongue. Finally, I felt somnolence assail me as I made my way to the far doors and stopped. This was not real. This was not me. Anger, yes. Sadness also, but never somnolence. I had been careless in the den of a monster once, and she had taken me under her wing. There was not enough luck in the world for a man to survive twice from the same mistake. I brought Honor's knife to my chin and sliced. The only reason I did not bring it to my gloved hand was the warmth I felt. It was wrong, feverish, illusory. Immediately, the full room came into sharp focus. A strange light glowed from every brightly lit object. The more I looked, and the brighter they became, yet at the same time the edge of my vision turned dark and foreboding. The tables were ice blocks, and the food was frozen bones. The fire was white and blue. I jumped and waved the blade around, still red with my blood. An illusion. A trick of the mind, dear reader. Afraid, I put the tip of the knife against one of the statues, and behold! It chipped, a fragment falling on the ground. Beneath were frozen muscle fibers. I was beset by frozen corpses. Alarmed, I rushed to the next door, only to be pushed away. The heavy oak panels, or were they? Almost ended up catching me in the cheek when a man barged in with the most vicious expression I had seen. He was a pale and wan, tall fellow with a stoop and a handsome if angular face, but his eyes were the crystalline blue of the frozen lake. He wore an elaborate doublet in shades of black and blue while a fur cap hid his hair. Indeed, it appeared that my host had picked a theme for his appearance. "Mr. Winters, I presume?" I asked, hands creeping to my holster. "You come in, you do not partake, and now you damage my collection? How rude you mortals can be. Very rude. Although you're different." He whispered a few words in a strange tongue that tickled my ear with the edge of understanding, as if the words were just slightly beyond me, and yet they carried a powerful meaning. I heard his interest before a peculiarity, but it was a cold and merciless approach. He was not the caretaker of the rare flower, but one who pins butterflies to a board. I had enough. "Are you Mr. Winters?" Yes, I am known by that name." Confirmation made, I shot him in the face. Now I know, dear reader, that you might find this a bit unsportsmanlike, but do please keep in mind that I stood alone in a gallery of cadavers facing a man who made mountains appear out of thin air. It was better to err on the side of caution. Unfortunately, my quick attempt was thwarted when his image seemed to fracture before me, then immediately reform. A statue shattered in the hall. Sorcery. Winter's pupils stayed blue but the white turned black. He smiled. His teeth were a forest of dark needles tipped with brownish flakes of dried blood. He removed a dagger from his still impeccable doublet and dove under my next shot. He moved right with inhuman dexterity, dodging another shot onto the table. I moved back. "You are other but you smell local. How curious." He asked another question, again in that unnerving language. I heard a question and the notion of origin but I cared not. "If you are going to hide then I will go after your precious prizes," I claimed, and shot the nearest statue. It cracked and broke down and I aimed at the next one but my time ran out. Winters snarled and launched himself at me. I got him between the eyes but another statue was destroyed in his stead. A second shot brought the same result, except that it was at point-blank range and, somehow, the cloud of smoke blinded him. He dove back under the table. "You will run out of bullets soon enough, curious thing. I know how that contraption works. Then you should also know that I have 2 of them. I emptied my last bullet at another grisly trophy before taking my rifle out. I calculated that I had 7 bullets and there were only 4 targets left plus Winter himself. Somehow, I doubted that I would be given the time to reload, especially if I had to do it with gloves. I had to make them count. "Let's see you shooting a cube of ice," a sinister voice uttered from the shadows. Quickly, I pulled the trigger of my quickly cooling weapon and another bullet came out. Then another. Did you hope for something, abomination? Damn you. He rushed me again, and against all odds, I missed. Or rather, the bullet clanged uselessly against the silver blade of the man's knife. Out of despair, I dropped my rifle and raised the knife I had been holding with 2 fingers. The monster gave another ghastly smile. I could see every sharpened fang and clear detail when he lurched. Somehow, I managed to dive to the side, but I felt a sharp pain in my flank. The beast had cut me. I will enjoy bleeding you dry, strange little thing. I think I will find your flesh delectable. Another charge. I had to get a hold of myself. Out of options, I yelled in return and charged him back. Have at you. We crossed blades, and for one moment I was pushed back by an incredible strength. It was like standing before a moving ship and trying to stop it with one's bare hand. I did not stand a chance. And then the feeling shattered. The dagger stopped against my knife and his face turned to disbelief. You dare bring iron? In my home? He grabbed me by the collar before I could react and threw me aside. I expected the cold impact of stone, and yet I went through the castle boundaries with a crash, rotten wood splintering under my weight. I crashed out into the howling storm of winter's heart. The winds instantly froze me to my core. I could barely see a couple of meters in front of me. I was also disarmed. The monster stepped out from the wall, backlit by a blue radiance. His mouth extended all the way to his ears now. He was tall and still stooped. Fingers extended like claws to unnatural length from his malformed hand so that any resemblance to a human was obscured by the horrifying shape he had finally revealed. You were an amusing diversion, little thing. It was smart of you to weaken my hold by slaying my puns, but it will not suffice. I will move on. I will find other pawns to feed my blood to. They will bring me all the power I need. Despair now, tasty treat, because this is the end of your story. Yes it is, I replied with a grim smile, because night has fallen. And you are outside. She fell on him. Asterisk. My claws pierced the Fae's shoulders and an interesting bit of magic happens. An elaborate Fae magic construct transfers meaning between the one before me and a reserve behind, somewhere inside of the house. He shifts out and reassembles a few feet away, no worse for wear. Complex and resource-intensive, however. I believe the range might be short as well. Who are you? He asks in English. Can you not tell? I reply in childlike Ian. Or what, indeed? Truly, this world is more filled with tasty things than I first assumed. The weave is not quite as rigid as I thought. Although, you were claimed. I can smell the stench of summer on you. Keyholes as well. An intriguing mix. The desire for freedom makes the strangest alliances, don't you think? Those are the tools of weaklings. True power tolerates no partage. Oh, you do not wish to escape. The Fae gives me an impressive smile. I am almost inclined to harvest a tooth just to inspect it later. Fascinating. Why escape when I can bring winter here instead? So many mortals sacrifice their independence for the truth I offer. The blood on the snow, the hunt, hunger that needs to be quenched. They speak to the local things on a level they understand. I will just have to find more to replace the ones you broke. When enough of them believe it, then winter will come as it always does. Amusing, but there is room for only one cold-loving apex predator in this world. Agreed. He jumps on me. Slow. He is barely more free than Sinead, and with his men dead, his house breached, and his plans in shambles, this is merely the end of a rather short hunt. I slap his pathetic attempt aside. I believe this was your last statue. I love the loss of confidence and the sudden fear. I love the smell of his panic, but they are cut too short when a blue shield surrounds him. It fills with ice. He still speaks through the quickly forming frost coffin as if it were not here. Your thing mentioned night, so I will see you during the day. Soon. Naive. I take out the thorn with the absolute certainty that I will grind down his defenses in only a minute. I need not have bothered. A sound like breaking glass pierces through the gale. We both look down to see the Fae's own silvery blade digging deep into his shield. I hear Bingle cry in triumph. He threw the weapon. The phase protection cracks under the weight of his own magic turned against him. My prey's expression of disbelief is quite delicious. His protection falls to pieces and I bite down before he summons any more cheap tricks. ****. Cold. Ice. Night. A polar winter in shades of blue, black, and green. Scattered bones, remnants from a feast long since reduced to gnawed shards and frozen tufts of hair. A roary shimmer in the distance. There is no wind here, only the immobility of a polar midnight. To breathe is to invite death in one's own lungs. It is to surrender the warmth in one's breast to the eternal, unending expanse of the end. There will never be a spring here. In some places, summer will return and the cycle will continue, but one day, the light will dim. One day, winter will remain. It will bury everything under its frozen embrace until the world reverts to one vast dead rock, until everything stops one piece at a time. It is inevitable. Cold is not spellcraft or feelings. It is the absence of movement. One day, all of creation will return to it. Forever. ****. I surface and pull the cold inside of me. The concept crystallizes in my veins and my psyche, chasing away the intense pleasure that comes with fey blood. A crack appears on my forearm, but it disappears soon enough when I digest the idea further. Behind us, the illusory castle collapses into a pile of planks. The fog disperses. We are at ground level with grass under our feet. The blonde prostitute and the black man stare with amazement. I suppose they are his acolytes now. Bingle seemed to have a propensity to meet the most curious personalities. Not me, of course. Loath. I pick up the dagger from the dead Fae, all his teeth now returned to normal. I present the captured weapon to the winner of the fight. Ah, thank you. I will be keeping that and returning his knife to brave honor. It has saved my life. Will you stay with us? No. The mystery is resolved. You can rest for a while before resuming your adventures, young Bingle. As for me, I have my own path to follow. Chapter 173 October 1870. The Council welcomes Ariane of the Nirari. Please check your talismans, thank you. The White Cabal Council has changed a lot since my first visit. Frost has been replaced by his granddaughter Margaret, who has dark hair except for a single white strand near the front. Cornelius, who did not appreciate me much, died during his attempted coup. I almost expected the White Cabal to exile the insurrectionists in a bleeding heart moment, thus creating a hostile faction bent on their destruction. It would have been stupid, of course. The Black Dog was anything but stupid. They were all executed. Cedric succeeded him as a member of the Golden Generation, the one I helped examine. He has grown into a stout bearded man as reliable as his barriers. William is the Black Dog now, and he is present. The head librarian is still a withered old lady, while the president is the same fat man waving his gavel around I saw struggle all those years ago. The White Cabal leadership shows a much broader range of ages than before. I still do not begrudge them their protective measures. They will pretend that they take every precaution against me, and I will pretend that I cannot bypass them. A satisfactory arrangement. Ariane of the Nirari, you have the floor. Thank you. Esteemed allies, I have come to share the information we obtained on the ghost killer. Why did you restrain our access to the crime scenes? Someone interrupts. I sigh heavily. Those people grant themselves quite a few liberties with respect that I would not tolerate under any other circumstances. Unfortunately, they're useful allies. I am forced to resort to diplomacy. Every warden is free to accept or refuse supernatural presence on their territory. So you do not control your own people? Every warden is given a measure of independence. The same autonomy that allowed me to forge an agreement with you. I reply, letting the implication sink in. Some lesser mage alliances have been wiped out when they became a nuisance. The White Cabal is a true, genuine danger. They would have been dealt with if it were not for me. As I was saying, we have investigated every scene and determined that the same caster was responsible for all of them. It is also the speaker's personal conclusion that the culprit was never present, or indeed, near the scene. The murders were committed by a creature. A summon? William asks, considering. So it would seem. The entity carries part of the aura of the caster. We also believe that it is immaterial and invisible. How do you figure? Cedric asked. Witness accounts and the lack of any signs of entry. Some of the trace aura went through walls as well. I have compiled every piece of information we have on this case in a file that will be provided to you as a courtesy. What do you mean, courtesy? You have already resolved the case? No, however we have assessed that the entity steals the caster's vitality with every casting. The murderer will be killed next summon or the one after that. So, you expect the case to resolve itself? Yes. That is quite irresponsible. What if others use the same means? Have you considered that? We have taken enough measurements to create a locating beacon. However, it would take much effort to build and the speaker's time is precious. If other cases arise, we will intervene. Are you not at least a little bit curious? I consider my answer for a few seconds. It must convey my meaning clearly. With the return of magic and the dramatic increase of mages aware of their own abilities, we expect freak accidents and strange quirks to continue increasing over time. We simply do not have the time or inclination to investigate every unusual matter. We prefer to leave this task to you and your sister organizations. And by this I mean the Red Cabal. The Accord's interests lie in politics and law, not in the miscellaneous and circus shows. We simply do not have the manpower to handle every strange occurrence. I finish. Every strange occurrence could lead to world-ending threats. Then feel free to escalate to us. In the meanwhile, you have our report on the situation. In truth, we do intend to watch instead of intervening, but so far did identify the woman behind the murders by correctly guessing that it was a tale of premeditated vengeance. I would have been surprised that a member of the fairer sex could be responsible for such a wanton massacre when I was a mortal. Now, few things surprise me. One cannot doubt the depth of depravity a woman can sink to after spending 5 minutes in the company of Melusan. After our little summoner dies, we will recover her research. What of the creature? Is it a demon? Whispers spread around the assembly. Some people watch me in fear. I am afraid I cannot comment on matters of religion. I shrug helplessly, gathering a few chuckles. Eventually, I am forced to interrupt the muttering. There was another issue I wanted to address. I will be leaving my position on an errand. What sort of errand? Cedric asks without malice. A private matter. It should not take much time. 2-3 years at most. I will be replaced by one of my subordinates, Urchin. I am quite pleased to see immediate apprehension in most of the people present. Much can happen in 3 years, and with the current rise in Integris sentiments, there will always be a crisis. I interrupt. No year passes without a new rising threat. The matter that concerns me cannot be delayed. I dismiss several accusations that I am not taking my position seriously, or that the Accords do not value the White Cabal. Urchin can be smooth when he bothers, and he is better at insidious remarks than I am. All will be well. I wait for the council to end outside of the rotunda, reviewing more reports. Safar's intelligence is unambiguous. Bertrand, head of the expansion faction of Mask, has taken over the leadership by allying with the Hastings progenitor. They now control India through local covens and proxies. Weapons and funds are sent to Mexico, which is currently under Mask control. They are ready to return. Although we are much stronger than we used to be, Mask will bring many more elites to the fray this time. That is quite fine since I will take the Fey blood away from them. Then we will see how they fare without their liquid courage. Over an hour later, the councillors finally leave and I stand up to intercept one of them. Margaret? Yes? Is something the matter? There was a private matter I was hoping to discuss with you. It does not concern the Cabal. Rather, it is a spellcaster concern. Oh. The woman is wary. We have known each other for quite some time, but Margaret is as cautious as her grandfather was daring. She is the only young archmage who is not part of the Golden Generation group, preferring to keep to her own for reasons I am not quite clear on. Nevertheless, She accepts my request and we soon find ourselves in her personal quarters. Her favorite color is pale blue and white. Perhaps the intense study of a specific branch of magic comes with a measure of distortion, although it might be difficult to measure. Constantine enjoys chains and binding and he is stuck up. I am decent at blood magic and I like blood. Something to explore later, I suppose. I follow Margaret in her personal office and watch her realize too late that it is covered with confidential reports. Should we retire to the salon instead? Yes. I follow her yet again to a boudoir, in which I find a coffee table covered in confidential reports, as well as a folded cardigan and an empty cup. I take it you do not receive much? I ask, teasingly. Margaret glares and blushes at the same time. I give her some time to clean up and sit, making myself comfortable. A distinctively flustered woman sits across from me. I lean forward and suddenly she remembers what I am. I will never tire of it. The white cabal knows what I am and what I can do, or rather, they do not, but it makes no difference from their perspective. At night, like now, none of them stand a chance. Because of my appearance, they often forget and treat me like any other caster, challenging me on the floor for more precise answers. They lower their defenses. I am a person. Then we are alone and they remember. I do not completely hide my aura as it would be quite rude, and there is a coldness in there that chills them to their bones if they pay attention. Even Margaret is not immune. For all of her mastery, she is still warm flesh and blood while I am not. I smile lightly. There is no need to intimidate her. I have come bearing a proposal. I wish to perform a trade. A trade? I wish to learn Polaris. Margaret scoffs, first dismissive yet soon suspicious. Polaris was Frost's signature spell, one so powerful it froze the entire arm of the Scourge Hive's main host. Even Constantine acknowledged the incredible power it took to wield this sorcery without killing everyone around him, a testament to the old Coger's incredible control. I want it. I thought you had little affinity for ice. Things have changed. Margaret licks her lips, careful in her response. When she speaks, her tone is slow and deliberate. Polaris is my grandfather's legacy in Lefurc. It is not just extremely complex, it also represents everything he stands for. I do not even allow the White Cabal to access it, though I shared the rest of his spellbook. You cannot possibly think that. My God. What is that? While she refused me, I removed a small chest from a bag and placed it on the table, opening it to reveal a frozen ruby shaped like an icicle. Immediately, the temperature drops. Margaret extends a greedy hand, but I seize her wrist before she can touch the object. Careful, it will freeze your finger off. She blinks, suddenly remembering where we are. Where did you find that thing? In the heart of a frozen corpse, one who bore the gift of winter. You will not find a better focus on Earth. Incredible. I will throw in a few shards of eternal ice so you can make yourself a nice gauntlet. She stares at me, calculating. Can you not make a gauntlet with it? She asks. I already have gauntlets and they suit me well. I mean for me. I tut loudly, closing the treasure's lid. Would you like me to help you dress and pomade your posterior as well while you're at it? Contact the Dverger. They will build it for you. Margaret whines and grumbles, but we both know she is interested. If I were to show you how to cast it, you cannot teach it to anyone else. I assure you, my intentions are purely selfish. Good. Wait, no, ugh. You didn't consent. I consent. I will not teach anyone else, nor will I help anyone else develop it through tips or advice. Fine. Just Polaris, not the rest of his library. Just Polaris. The truth is that the Fey blood did not turn me into a gifted caster. It will take years of effort for me to learn the spell. I am still going through what Sinead and my sire gave me. I have no need to add more situational hexes to my repertory. Ugh, the rest of the Cabal will be livid when they learn about it. There is no need for that. It can be our little secret, I tell her as I lean forward with a gentle smile. For some reason, it does not comfort her. Asterisk. Ah, the Atlantic Ocean, with the fresh wind upon my face and a healthy reserve of good novels, coffee, and some more private reading. I smile and enjoy the speed of the Spirit of Dalton as it cleaves the waters. I even get the immense pleasure of seeing Sinead miffed. Glorious night. Must I? He grumbles, readjusting his hat. What is the first rule of the sea? I bellow, making the Lycian jump and eliciting an immediate, well-rehearsed response from the cabin boy. Tricorns are mandatory, except for the chef, ma'am. Indeed. Did you actually make it into a rule? Wait, did you make more rules? Sinead asks, suddenly suspicious. I am so glad he asked. Boy, what is the third rule of the sea? There are only two types of ships, targets, and targets of opportunity, ma'am. Seventh rule. If it is bearing down on us, what is it? An enemy warship, ma'am. What if it is too small? A boarding craft, ma'am. Smaller. A torpedo, ma'am. Good lad. How many rules have you made? Sinead asks, somewhat amazed. You can join the crew of the dread pirate Ariane, Queen of the Sea, and find out. Do I also get my cute cabin boy? He asks with a teasing smile. No, I reply with a toothier one, you get to be the cabin boy. Touché. Now, are you sure about your guest? Yes. He defended me against the Order of the Knights. I am certain that he will not begrudge me this little escapade, even though our objective is in Eneru hands. I selected it specifically among the list you provided. Any reason? It belongs to Nina of the Dver. I have not yet had the privilege of being acquainted. She is a bitch. I see. She tried to bully me, and stealing her belongings will bring me great amounts of satisfaction. Understandable. In the meanwhile, you and your merry band of outcasts are going to do something for me. Sinead is on guard. In fact, I have not seen him so careful in a long while. Even being shot at by ruffians did not generate this amount of stress. Delightful. My Sinead, are the waves not to your liking? Does the Prince of Summer favor small puns? I have many ways to escape while on land. Here, I am trapped. Are you not concerned? No, I am trapped by the sunlight every dawn. This is a Dverger-made warship. Whatever it cannot outrun, it can sink. In fact, it can both sink and outrun all but the sturdier ships of the line. Are you done gushing? All of my ship voyages have gone well, while taking the train has led me from disaster to catastrophe. I stop, frowning. I have been intercepted twice and derailed once while riding the train. Is it a cursed method of transportation? Perhaps Metis punished me for cheating by calling bad luck upon my unworthy head. I would like to know what, exactly, you intend us to do. Simple. I explain in great detail the plan I have in mind, including some of the details I managed to obtain from a French immigrant. The details remain sketchy due to distance, but it does not seem to deter Sinead. He laughs, and laughs, and laughs. Asterisk. It starts as a rumor, then spreads all over the newspaper of Europe in a wave of outrage and awe. Gossips and officers babble and exclaim, baffled by this most peculiar of heists. The mind boggles. Who would commit such a bizarre crime? Who would steal such a curious object? Why, only the best paramour in the world, of course. Asterisk. The Spirit of Dalton Mark III moors in the port of Trieste on November 12, 1870, under a Maltese flag. This time, I enjoy the city's neoclassical and Baroque architecture as I stroll through the Austrian quarter. I take a midnight walk on the Piazza Grande and enjoy this extraordinary seafront square. I draw the Dolomite Mountains from the Piazza Venezia as they disappear under low clouds charged with snow. I sup on a drunken sailor. To tour the world free of concerns. That would be the life. Perhaps one day, when the list of people who want me dead has considerably shortened, I shall indulge. Alas, the holiday must soon end. The 3 Lycians who will be my accomplices and I travel north under disguise. I have to grant it to Sinead, he is an extraordinary guide. Where I before enjoyed the administrative and logistical power of the vampire alliances, here my comfort comes from the man's incredible charisma. There is no paperwork he cannot obtain, no frontier guard he cannot cuddle or bribe. I do not even have to resort to charm once during the entire trip. In fact, there is little for me to do except keeping a disguise and enjoying my evenings. We frequently invite ourselves to parties and events. Sinead even wins a poetry contest with a raunchy sonnet about a Russian maiden, a train driver in some border town. Although I expected cloaks and daggers, it turns out that I spend most of the trip with brush and canvas. A pleasant development. We arrive at Tauran's castle one fine autumn night, finding it empty. The forests around Ehrenstadt have put on their fiery fall dresses. His manor juts over the sea of reds and browns in all its pale glory. I to find his servant Nadia present, and she welcomes me with guarded respect. When I expose my idea, her pleasure and amusement reflect mine, and we soon free a rarely used reception room on the first floor for our little project. The prize of the theft is brought and reassembled there to everyone's merriment, despite the engineering challenge it poses. Besides Sinead, Machias of the court of Kehol is also present, as well as a like he and I had never met from the court of shadows. He is a strange man with a hooked nose, very tall and painfully thin, who answers to Mr. Elusive. I forget about his existence if he has not manifested himself in a while. The worst thing is that it is not an attack on my mind. He merely fails to make an impression. I find it aggravating. Nevertheless, the trio of Fae has retreated to the village and Etzing while I remain sole guest at the castle. As for Savea, she will not take part in the heist. She remains a researcher with little taste for the violent and the noisy. Her loss. On the night Tauran returns, I wait for him in the room and hail as soon as his thunderous aura returns. I find the annoyance in his powerful presence titillating, especially when it turns to eagerness and curiosity when he identifies my own. His steps lead him to the room I occupy, then to my gift. His eyes find me, then find the prize, and his face turns into a beautiful look of surprise. It is not every day one floors a lord. Tauran grips the wall with a hand, stumbling. He shakes a finger at my lute. You. It was you. The entirety of Europe talks about it. It was you. It was you. You stole it for me. The grand organ of Amiens Cathedral? Tada. You always said it was wasted on the mortals. So, I gift it to you instead. He has not quite recovered. I am filled with an immense amount of pride. By the eye. My star. How? A falsified repair order, an impersonated crew. The middle of the week. A deflowered nun. It's the most beautiful instrument I have ever beheld. Tauran lurches to the seat and almost collapses on it. He runs his long fingers over the keys with amorous jealousy. He slowly places his hand in the proper place and pushes down softly. The organ sings. With religious attention, my lover places his feet on the pedal while he delicately pulls and pushes knobs on the side, apparently designed to produce various effects. When he is done, the first bars of Bach's toccata and fugue in D minor fill the valley. I smile gently. He can be so old-fashioned, sometimes. I watch in silence as he plays, fingers closed, swaying with the rhythm. He is so alive right now. In fact, 2 bloody tears fall down his cheek. Drink them, my star. For you. I oblige and lean forward. It tastes a little salty and a little bloody, and it transports what passes for my soul until my black heart beats again and my lungs gulp the air. Blood rushes to my cheeks. I vibrate with every note, feeling the echo of his pleasure down my spine. He is happy. Genuinely, truly, unambiguously happy. His fingers now dance over the ivory keys like the steps of ballerinas, then they press down imperiously, then they jump and stab down like dueling swords as the music requires. Seconds turn to minutes, then to hours as he explores his gift. I place my head over his shoulder and I let him. Hours later, we walk in silence to the balcony and watch the night die, then retire to his room for a tender tryst. Worth it. Alas, all good things must come to an end. After a night of fun comes the inevitable questions. What am I doing here, and why have I returned to Europe secretly and very, very illegally? Indeed, the existence of traveling papers only protects me insofar as I notify the concerned faction in advance that I will visit their land. Unfortunately, It would be foolish of me to do so, seeing as I intend to rob them of their strategic assets and, if Sinead delivers, start a war. Tauran is understandably unamused when I inform him that I am here for covert reasons. I do not share the details with him so he can maintain plausible deniability, which means that from his perspective I am being most unwise. You are playing a dangerous game, my star. Enaru and Mask are old lovers and old rivals. We know each other inside out, from locations to finance to manpower. You are a child joining a bridge table among old friends. You will be eaten alive. I am not working alone. Then I would like to meet those accomplices of yours. I hesitate, but Tauran leans towards me. Those who helped you steal the organ? The very same. I know they're here, in the village. Well. What are you not telling me? Well. You brought another lover on my land. That would be a terrible faux pas. I have grown used to the fact that vampires see relationships as fleeting things. I meet Tauran once every blue moon and do not expect him to stay celibate. Vampire couples do not move together, do not create families together, and we have no legal stake in the whole process. One can hardly be blamed for not promising themselves to each other until death do us part, when that could happen in 3 centuries. Even the crustiest immortal can change quite a bit in that time frame. We are also fundamentally selfish creatures driven by instinct. Regardless, there are still customs one should observe as a sign of respect. We do not bring a lover on our paramour's territory. It is simply not done. No, the reality is other, but, to reveal it, I will require an oath. Tauran appears surprised and perhaps a little offended. You do not trust me with this information? You will understand my caution if you agree to keep their identity secret. Are they rogues? No. I would never partner with rogues, Tauran. Then I swear to keep their presence and identity secret. I have no obligation to let Tauran know, and yet could I truly distrust someone who went against the knights to save my life? Never. I owe him too much. And he swore. It would be better to show you. *****. The introduction between Tauran and the Fae is glacial. More specifically, Tauran ignores making us and Mr. Elusive to focus on Sinead with raptor-like intensity. Similarly, the Prince of Summer stands with the poise of a duelist, right foot slightly forward. The pair glare at each other for a few seconds in the deserted inn's room. Mr. Elusive scurries away, making us winks. His lips form the words drama queen. A complete fabrication. My, what delicious guess. Tauran. Play nice please, I whisper, but he pays no heed. Charming little hamlet you have here. Very pastoral, Sinead replies. The two men glare holes into each other. Are you two done? What is going on? All right, you have met each other, now let's go, Tauran. I drag my lover outside, feeling quite awkward about the whole affair. He is not my lover, I assure the old lord. Does he know that? You know that anything between the two of us would result in his death. And that would be for the best. Tauran stops me. You are an adult, my star, even by vampire standards, so I will not patronize you. I will, however, tell you this. You are playing an even more dangerous game than I assumed. If you get caught, do not bring your pursuers here if they are Enaru, because as much as I love you, I have no esteem for your comrades and am bound by previous agreements. I understand. Good. Now, let us retire to my armory, just in case there is something there you could find useful. Ah, he still cares. *****. The time for planning has come. Our target is one of 3 blood fortresses the Enaru possess in Europe. The holding facilities are located in the Hohenwald Basin in the Austrian Alps, a small depression surrounded by mountains on all sides but one. All of the surrounding hamlets are fully under Enaru control, and all travelers will be reported to local enforcers as soon as they are spotted. As such, we will need to make our approach in secrecy. As for the fortress itself, we have limited information. I watch Sinead place his fists on the table in an unusual display of vulnerability. I have observed the place myself during an extremely risky trek 3 years ago. There is a single approach to the fortress on an exposed path filled with ruins, guards, and defensive constructs. By observing the comings and goings of convoys, I have determined that access to the fortress is scheduled well in advance, with plenty of seals and permissions. I believe we will not be able to pass as reinforcements. Their security is top-notch for such a lowly realm. Our best chance is to scale the mountain from the back, which will pose problems of their own. There are defensive measures there of a nature I do not know, then the scaling itself on an ice-encrusted wall. After we manage to get in, our objective is threefold. Sinead unfolds a parchment. A spell emerges from its depth, deploying over the table in a shower of lights. A miniature, ghostly fortress now stands before us in ethereal blue lights. I study the construct with interest. The body of the fortress was built on rock hanging over a forest of pine trees. The only path leads to a barbican, then over a chasm into a narrow inner court. The main keep is a rectangle, blackish and ominous edifice of large stones. A small flower garden on the balcony overlooking the court provides the only concession to life I can see. Even the windows are designed not to let anyone larger than a child pass. As for the roof, it appears to be well patrolled and locked tight. How did you get a view of the roof? I ask. I climbed the mountain and used binoculars, Sinead replies. I must admit to some surprise, as I had never seen Sinead so serious even once in my life. Even his usual quips have disappeared. The man before me is focused and determined. The only Lycian influence remaining comes from the magic he uses to let us see our target. As I said, the objective is threefold. First, we must recover the soul of the storm from the keep's guardian golem. We need this, for it is one of the only stones in the world that can contain the energies of the ritual. The others are just as protected as this one, and if the vampires discover that we are after them, our task will only become more difficult. A stone appears in front of us. It is black and carved into a teardrop with white lines crossing it like thunderbolts on a midnight sky. Pretty, I suppose, and quite powerful. I have prepared this approximation based on the memories of one of the guards who saw it. We will first work on obtaining it from the Golem Bay, near the entrance. A red dot appears at the base of the main structure. Our second objective is to recover the documents showing the current distribution and locations of the captive Fae. It will allow us to start the war. How? I ask, surprised. Inaru has broken the treaty that ended the last war. I am going to provide Mask with an opportunity they cannot ignore. Are you certain? Trust me, Purpot, I was pitting powerful idiots against each other long before you were born. It will work. As for the third objective, it is optional, the rescue of the imprisoned Lycians. As much as I dislike leaving them in the hands of their torturers, saving our kin is not a priority. We already have enough resources to complete the ritual. I would go so far as to say that we should not free them unless we are already noticed, and need a distraction. As for how they are guarded, the sentry I interrogated did not know. We only have limited information about the inside, which gives us far too many points of failure. Nevertheless, the attack remains our best option. There are some things I was about to learn and it relates to the staff and alarms. Can we expect vampires? Yes, in fact there will be at least one, a master with a strong tendency for corporal punishment. The sentry hinted that he thought the man was insane. Besides that, there could be visiting Inaru, come to replace their blood vials. Unfortunately, we have no way to find out in advance. What about regular troops? About 20 soldiers, 12 staff members, and 5 mages including one whose only role is to call for help if the alarm rings. We should eliminate the messenger if we get the chance, I say. Yes. In fact, if the alarm triggers and he calls for reinforcement, we must abandon the plan and flee as fast as we can because all of Inaru will come for us. Security features? Many, many wards. Fortunately, the staff often changes so everyone carries keys tuned to the defenses, allowing free passage between the different rooms. We will have to liberate them. As for the golem, they are an unknown. I will handle it, I say with confidence. As much as possible, We should complete the first objective before being spotted or all is lost. The lack of intelligence on the inside presents many unknowns, I comment, concerned. Any chance for a diversion? It will be worse. You are not facing mortals, Ariane. The fortress will go on high alert at the first irregularity. You can also expect the soldiers not to take any chances. If they spot something unusual, they will trigger the alert first and investigate later. There will be no room for mistakes. For now, I would like everyone to discuss possible plans and options. Ariane, you had something for us. With a nod, I reach under that table for one of my special chests. The interior reveals quite a few goodies I have made and acquired over the years. I have built most of them myself. Very well, gentlemen. Shall we? Chapter 174. My feet land on snow without a sound and I take a deep breath. It smells of cold and of pine sap. The air is crisp with only the lightest wind. Tonight is a good night. Fluffy clouds cover the sky, not yet heavy with snow, yet thick enough to protect our progress from the view of mortals. The forest here is dense and wild. The trees count their age in centuries. We are but trespassers. Truly, we are trespassers not just in the forest, but in the entire valley. A village far to our right is populated with loyalists willing to die for the local dver. Even birds could be spies. As such, we move in silence which spares me Sinead's constant grumblings. The poor lad does not enjoy this season of savages very much. As for me, I wear the fey armor I was gifted. The teal-colored ribbons still flow freely from my shoulder blades, the skirt is still ethereal and blue as before, and the silvery plates still stick snugly to my form in a shimmering waterfall of enchanted metal. The entire effect is somewhat ruined by the heavy bag I carry on my back. I simply could not be caught dead unequipped on such a difficult operation. A part of me wishes I had the solid slab of eternal ice between my heart and enemy blades, not this skimpy thing. Alas, it would be best if I remained anonymous, clad in a foreign garment that emits no aura. Anonymous, or at least, plausibly deniable. Similarly, I have altered my traits to appear more elfin and gave myself preposterous silver hair and pink eyes. The effect on my companions, at least, was noticeable. My new appearance intimidates them. Behind me, the three Fae move with various degrees of grace. Making us seemingly floats above the pristine surface while Sinead struggles a bit. There was someone else. Ah yes, Mr. Elusive. Curse that sinister Bienstock and his strange magic. I hope it works on the enemies as well as it does on me. As I move on, a hole in the wall of frozen pines gives me a glimpse of our destination. The fortress is just as ominous and monolithic as Sinead's image led me to believe. I signal the others and we quickly convene. From here on, not a word, I tell them in childlike yin. We use sign language only. If you absolutely need to say something complex, inform me at once. They all nod before I am done talking. Sometimes, I feel like they are indulging me, though at least they certainly treat the situation seriously. I can never know what they think. Our procession continues. We are entering the woods the Urwald vampires set up to protect their otherworldly blood sources. The bloodline consists of druids and gardeners. The place is undoubtedly trapped. The question is how? Scouting would only increase the likelihood of discovery, so we will go in blind and be vigilant. As we move on, the shadows grow and the woods go deeper. Trunks expand in size until some of the coniferous around us reach a prodigious size. Ancient spider webs extend in crystal shells across the low boughs, their makers long since frozen. Nothing, absolutely nothing, comes to mar the pristine surface of the snow, no bird tracks, no paw prints. We are the first to walk there since the last snowfall. I look up and down, searching for traps or spies and finding none. I fail to detect even the tiniest heartbeat beyond that, muted, of my partners in crime. At a loss, I take out a measurement tool and point it down. It has the appearance of a sphere and its function is to reveal traps, pitfalls, and enchantments. There are no holes I can find. Thorough inspections show no signs of gargoyles or golems or permanent constructs designed to spot intruders. I feel myself growing paranoid. Why is nothing happening? And then I feel it. At first, just a susurrus at the edge of my essence, it grows and appears like a distant choir whose voices I mistook for the wind. It slithers in the still air until I recognize the dark bark for what it is, cursing myself because it might be too late. This is the nightmare forest. I stop because for one instant, the night has grown too deep for this world, but then the moment passes and I can see the clouds again. This is bad. I hold a fist and the others gather around me, all two, wait, no, three of them. A small circle later and all sound is trapped inside, causing our voices to echo strangely. We are near the nightmare forest. I do not know how but I can feel it. We could get lost. Place between places, leading to a plane between planes, Mr. Elusive confirms. It might have been the first time he spoke. I am not entirely sure myself. His voice carries a raspy note, and it feels distant as well, as if it had been borne by the wind from over the next valley. This is the trap, but I do not know how to bypass it with certainty. We are beyond the scope of what I expected for alarms. This plane is bound to you, Mr. Elusive says again. You can guide us out. How would I do that? Seek out and guide us there, the strange being replies, still in awkward childlike yin. I understand that he is struggling to convey a complex meaning in a language that was not designed for it. The Lycians have an entire branch of language dedicated to magic, one that human speech lacks completely. He is simply struggling to help me understand something for which I have no point of reference. The wavelength of this world and the liminal forest plane are different, Puppet. As someone bound to both, you are our best hope to, disentangle them. Find us a way through. Find the fortress. He waits patiently until I finally nod. This task is not complex, but it is unfamiliar, he continues. We have many such pathfinders among our ranks. Being certain is more important than being fast, here. I want you to take your time. We will not be lost until we start moving. The place is stable, Mr. Elusive adds. I am not so sure. Or rather, something shakes at the edge of my perception. There are more dangers here than simply being lost. Nevertheless, I close my eyes and try to get a better sense of my surroundings. The fortress is out there, it really is. I have seen its murder holes, perceived the dull lights of its selfish lanterns. I just have to find it. It exists for sure. Slowly, I get accustomed to the taste of the world. My native one is stable and almost mineral in its antediluvian existence, an old, rigid relative who only moves when compelled to. By comparison, the other fleets and touches. It barely has more substance than a light air current. One that carries the scents of the night. The two lie intertwined here, but some trees live more in one realm than in the other. I glance around and find two that belong to earth close, their branches crossing over us. Every arch is a gate, Sinead whispers. His voice bears a slight tremor. Something is wrong. The wind has stopped. We might be closer than I expected. I confess that those Arenwald crafters certainly wove an exquisite trap. I must take every precaution to prevent us from being lost. What can I do to increase our chances? Symbols. I need symbols. I sigh. Sinead, please take my right hand. To his credit, he obeys without sass. He must be feeling the severity of the situation. Making then Mr. Elusive add themselves to the chain while I call a ball of light. New Surihin. The purple radiance shines the way, and I move forward with confident steps despite my fear. And arch, a door. We have to be getting closer. I find another such arch going in the right direction and lead us there. I cannot see the fortress right now, but I remember where it was compared to us. It will have to be enough. We make progress, but now the silence has grown oppressive and I am concerned about why. The purple radiance of my light spell bobs with every step as I move forward, bringing us close to the exit, of that I am sure. I can finally spot some clouds in the canopy's breaks. My concern is no longer getting out, it is getting out on time. After all, a light in a forest is sure to attract attention. We almost make it. Almost, but not quite. Just as I catch a glimpse of frost-covered walls, heavy stumps break the silence. My first reaction is relief, as I recognize hooves, and I even go so far as to curse myself for my absent-mindedness. I was so focused on secrecy that I forgot to ask Metis for help. My elation lasts for the blink of an eye. Metis is quiet unless she wants to make an impression, but even at her most intimidating, she never comes close to that level. Those are the impacts I expect from one of Constantine's golems. I spot mirages and shadows first, an image broken as if seen through a shattered mirror, but finally our pursuer appears between us and our exit. It is not quite a horse. If Sanea described a nightmare to a demented fae who had never seen the animal, then asked them to recreate the beast with shadows, roots, and shards of obsidian, this is what it would look like. In fact, it would be a miniature of the entity now barring our way, for I could walk between its powerful limbs without bending. More concerning, I cannot assess its power. At all. Two silvery orbs like moonlight reflected on tar bore into me. I cannot detect any essence, not even a smidgen of magic. It is no scent either. Is something wrong with me? I turn back to the three fae, now as unmoving as statues and obviously worried. Pray. Pray. Pray, but cute. Everything is in order. I turn back to the shard, elephant-sized nightmare. Nothing. Troublesome. It tilts its head. I cannot tell what it wants. I cannot read it. No, wait, I can. Slowly, I call upon the little Renwald essence I have, undoubtedly one of my least used abilities. I still cannot tell much, but I can tell that it is inspecting us. Perhaps expecting something. Before I can reflect more, a second step of hooves crunch on the snow. This one is more familiar, and a moment later, Metis trots by my side. She shakes her head and snorts. The thing does not move, and neither do we. I think. I can tell. I asked for safe passage, I say. The creature's attention lands on me. Before, it was looking. Now, it is paying attention. An offering of blood. And? Metis takes a step forward and her small saddlebag, the only one she tolerates, bumps against my shoulder. And flesh of a prey. The massive creature takes one heavy step forward and waits. Taking it as a sign of agreement, I move forward and grab the blade of my axe. It is not a good tool, but the handful of throwing knives I have discharged their effects on impact, and that would be quite unpleasant. The cut gives me more pain than I expected, but soon dark blood pools in my palm. I present it to the creature. Rather than licking it, it breathes in, and the black pool disappears. Next is the offering of flesh. I grab in the saddlebag and find a caramelized pig ear. The creature's head moves down, a horror of black stones and sharp angles. An ethereal fog bubbles behind some of the plates, and I detect no flesh at all. I take a step back, my end fulfilled. The creature heads slowly turns to Sanayat. No, I say. The deal was safe passage. It knows. No playing with words. It takes a step forward, and the tip of Rose comes to rest under where the throat would be. Metis' hooves stomp the ground. No, I say again, thrice I deny you, no. I flare my aura. Do not try me. Do not play coy with a devourer. The creature's focus returns to me. I bare my fangs. No games. And it turns into a nightmare. The shift is seamless. One moment, I face a spiky abomination born by the opiated dreams of a suicidal wretch, and the next I follow a large horse, a humongous horse, but a horse nonetheless, outside of the forest. The titanic beast stops at the bottom of the cliff upon which our destination rests and turns around, disappearing into a dense copse. I turn to Metis with love and curiosity. Can you change into that as well? I ask with some trepidation. In lieu of answers, the best pony lowers her head and bumps my posterior. Yes, that would be very uncomfortable indeed. Never mind. I pull two ears from the bag and offer them one after the other because she is the best dread pony and that weird large one was slightly dishonest, so it gets less and that is final. She bumps against me one last time and leaves, again in silence. Good Metis. In the meanwhile, The Lycians have remained quiet and focused. I nod and receive nods in return. They are ready to proceed. We should not speak. I take out spikes and Sinead grabs a rope so thin it might as well be a string. We fasten it to our belts and I climb first, planting the pitons, as those spikes are called, deep into the ice. My natural strength is enough for the task and those are enchanted for maximum adherence. The Lycians have gloves that help them scale the smooth surface, but I end up carrying most of their weight, which is fine. Stamina is not an issue for me while their night is still young. After a slow but uneventful climb, we reach the first true stone. I stop, but Sinead bids me go higher. I only feel a tug on the rope as we reach the first window, or rather the first murder hole so thin I could not pass my arm through it. Glass covers it, but behind I see the flickering orange of an open flame. The detection tool reveals no particular enchantments and for good reason. Enchantments can be set up, but it still takes image to recharge them. Each one increases the burden on those in charge of the upkeep. Even the most paranoid defenders would not place powerful wards on every stone wall, so finding no defenses here does not surprise me considering the trap outside. I do expect security measures once we are inside, however. I silently cast an enchantment and a small hole opens, revealing the interior. We have found the laundry room. Making salutes us mockingly. I hear the flutter of wings and, suddenly, he is inside. I had nothing to do with it. Truly, the power of the Lycians is increasing lately, even if they are still limited to parlor tricks. With our first infiltration done, I keep climbing. Making us as our poisoner, or so he claims. His task is to find the kitchen which, even at that time, has warm drinks for the men and women on patrol. Sinead assures me that he will not be noticed, and I have no reason to doubt. He has been dodging my kin for decades. It should be fine. My ascent continues and we reach the next level. This time, the windows are dark and I peer into an administrative area. Time to let Mr. Elusive in. I focus and call upon a rather complex spell, one that I learned from the Knights of Old People. The stone flows and expands. The magic would be more taxing if I did not have immense reserves, and I managed to keep the spell under control as well as discreet. Mr. Elusive, I frown. I glare at Sinead. What were we doing here? He points up. Oh yes, there we go. I make sure to leave the pitons dug as deep as they can go, even if they bite into the stone. The rope is almost invisible from above and will be used as an emergency exit should the worst come to pass. The next level is only one below the roof. The fortress only has 3 floors with windows for added security, and this will be our point of ingress. A summary inspection reveals access to an armory. I am about to get in when Sinead places his gloved hand on mine and shakes his head. He signs alarm and door. Oh yes, the armory would be locked from the outside and this one will have magical protection without a doubt. I am also unwilling to cast the wall-piercing spell closer to mages and without several yards of granite between us. It would be best to find another entrance. Without a noise, I move left to the nearest entrance and lodge the last piton on the battlement jutting out, just above me. I hear a nearby heartbeat. There are sentries there, unaware of the daring intruders under their feet. Let us keep it that way. We have found the dormitories. The next window leads into a small room with 2 beds and wardrobes. Forms sleep in their bed. Sinead nods. This is it. I focus and cast again for what I hope is the last time. The rift widens, and widens. One of the shapes shifts in their bed. Sinead smoothly dives through and I follow a moment later. He unsheathes a dagger and stabs the man on the left in the temple. I see his dagger get in and the wound close behind without a disbelief, yet there is no doubt that the person is quite dead. His cell companion soon shares the same fate. The blade leaves no visible wound behind and even the smell of loose bowels fails to occur. The only sign that our foes have met their demise is the absence of breath. I am as impressed by his tool as by his ruthlessness. We used the euphemism disable or neutralize during the planning phase. It appears that my friend wishes to leave no survivors. It is acceptable. The 2 men do not look like locals. One of them was clearly of Slavic descent, though this is the best estimate I can make from the man's features. I find uniforms among their belongings, in light green. They wield pistols loaded with silver bullets and enchanted short swords. I noticed rifles in the armory, so their upstairs colleagues might have additional equipment. We also find rectangle metal cards I use to deactivate their door's seal. Sinead follows me out into a corridor decorated with tapestries and lined with more doors, all of them locked for now. Most show 2 names and must be personal quarters. We follow the corridor right to an atrium decorated with large open windows leading to the balcony garden, or so I assume. The windows are currently closed and locked behind metal shutters. I can feel no less than 3 layers of wards here, unsurprising considering that it presents a major security risk. The atrium was designed as an entertainment area. I see a bar of sorts, couches, and a well-stocked library with books in various states. The curiosity comes from the scent in the air. I recognize tobacco and cologne, but there is a lingering stench of potent dry blood. Its source soon becomes apparent. To the side, a cage has been placed around a single chair. Prisoners. I sign to Sinead. He nods. We explore a bit more, but it soon turns out that the entire 3rd floor only consists of those rooms and a few other amenities such as bathrooms. I propose to unlock the gates leading up and down using the dead guard's chit, but Sinead stops me once again. He shows a list of people and hours stuck to a sheet of paper to the side. I frown. Does he really think that they would set the alarm to trigger if the wrong person opened the door? I examine the construct and find no such workings, but still decide to give him the benefit of the doubt when he signals me to wait. We stand there for over 10 minutes in silence until a pair of guards open the door. They appear bored out of their mind. We kill them both. I do not attempt to bite them for information because I wish to keep to the seeker of lost memories persona I have for as long as I can, even if it means giving up information. If the guards do not have some sort of protection in place, I would not know. As far as vampire records are concerned, the last Fey-holding fortress takeover occurred in 1598. With the patrol disposed of, we end up in possession of various sets of key cards. I am about to take the stairs down when Sinead interrupts me yet again, still signaling to the timetable. I read some scribbles in German and realize what the canny rogue meant. Next to the name of Herr Muller, I find the orders for golem maintenance. We move back to the bedrooms with our newly acquired universal access card, find the one belonging to the poor technician and dispose of him and his neighbor. In his personal effects, we find 2 cards, one for golem access, and the other for golem emergency access. This immediately alerts me. Did they design the castle layout for quick golem access? I show the card to Sinead and he points back towards the garden access. We lock the door on our way out. All this skulking around feels extremely unseemly, and yet I must ignore the nagging feeling that we are improvising because we are, in fact, improvising. And we have no choice. Getting more information proved unfeasible. We must gather it now. Sinead points at something I should have noticed. I would have, if I had not been in charge of magical detection. Behind the bar lies the only carpet in the entire public area. I lift it to reveal an unadorned trapdoor. It opens with the keycard, revealing a dark shaft and some serious anti-detection enchantments. I shiver at the thought of how many burglaries my companion has committed. Impressive. Before leaving, I remove a package from my bag and place it upon the floor, following which I remove a silver needle from its flank. A light click informs me that the mechanism is armed. Sinead frowns. He tried to veto the explosives idea, but I would not have it. They have always been the great equalizer in my more lopsided fights. Some of our foes might guess it was me from the simple fact they were used, but the good thing is that they will not be able to prove it because explosives tend to erase evidence. All they will have will be suspicion. I will take this as an acceptable price for the added option. After one last glare, Sinead follows me down. I believe he might be afraid of explosives and make a note to tease him about it later. The shaft itself is dark and unlit, with only metal bars lodged in the stone facilitating the access. I stop at regular intervals to check for enchantments and find nothing beyond secret doors probably hidden on every level. We keep going down and soon reach the basement level where the shaft ends. The golem access card opens the way into a lit hangar of impressive proportions. While the rest of the castle had a distinct medieval feel, this exudes modernity. Steel beams line the ceiling, and from them hang harnesses and pulleys. Storage cabinets line the walls in tight metal ranks. I spot a workshop on one side next to a small door, while monumental steps lead up to what should be the inner courtyard. The access is blocked by a trapdoor large enough to let the golem through. As for the war machine itself, it stands alone in the middle of the room. It is now that I appreciate the genius of Constantine, both in his craftsmanship but also in his ability to remember that a golem's structure is not limited by biology. The golem in front of me looks like a giant in steel armor. I estimate that it would be slow and ponderous, though powerful. Constantine prefers reverse leg articulations, a more thin and streamlined appearance, and more adaptive armament than a giant iron maze. Honestly, what a waste. My attention returns to the situation when I hear a voice coming from the last corner of the room. There, I find a house within a house, a cubicle of reinforced stone with thick glass and a heavy door. As I watch, a man in uniform exits the safe room and frowns in my direction. Muller? Was I close? I move. He dies from a fractured spine on my way to the door, which while open, is protected by a shield. I crash against it. My eyes meet those of a terrified Midge. He reaches for a bulging red button. I remove 3 steel balls from a pocket of my bag and throw them. The shield moans under their deleterious effect, then cracks under the strain. I power through. I grab the man's hand in extremis and break his neck as well. I had to resist the urge to bite him, which surprises me. Nevertheless, the crisis is averted. That was close, I whisper to Sinead as he joins my side. And that is why you are here. Ah yes, I am indeed a vampire lady. It does help. This booth appears to be the center of the fortress defense, Sinead declares. His amber eyes inspect every piece of equipment in the tiny room. There is the large red button, but also mirrors that show the outside of the fortress, the courtyard, the garden, the gate, and the top of the barbican. We are fortunate that there are so few of them, I observe. Although it makes sense since their main enemies are vampires and surveillance devices do not catch us. They do not? Sinead asks, surprised. No, but it would not have mattered here since you were with me. We were wise not to attempt the garden entrance given what I have seen. Oh, the sentries on the barbican are still awake. There should be around 10 guards awake at this time of the night. We have eliminated 4. 2 patrol the barbican and 2 others should patrol the roof. It leaves 1 patrol, possibly on the first floor or outside. Making us might have been successful in putting them to sleep. Then only the master is left. But first, I will deactivate the alarms, I say, examining the desks around me. I will retrieve the soul of the storm, then. Sinead removes pliers and other items from his own bag and walks to the golem. As for me, I am left severing the nerve cord linking this antenna of the Inaru Alliance from the rest. They will quickly notice that the fortress is non-responsive, but we will hopefully be long gone by the time they send reinforcement. The long-range communication mirror hangs from the back wall, surrounded by enchantments. I consider just destroying it, then reconsider. Since I have a few minutes, I can sabotage instead. The unfortunate sod who will next attempt to activate it will receive a mouthful of crystal shards for their trouble. It might also look like a malfunction from the other side. With vicious glee, I cut a few lines and extend another to create a power loop, which will destabilize and quickly destroy the mirror. My misdeed completed, I recenter my attention on Sinead. The rogue deftly plucks our prize from the golem's exposed mechanism as I watch. He places the pearl carefully in a small box. Our main objective is complete. And nothing went wrong. What an auspicious start. We could even leave now if we wanted, but I know Sinead. He will want to attempt to free the Lycians if possible. Despite his apparent detachment, I remember the anger he showed at the thought of his kin being treated like cattle. The small door should lead to them. I pointed it and the Prince of Summer nods with determination. The Golem access keycard opens the path. We next enter a storage space for important pieces, including repair equipment and magical supplies. This is a armory, of sorts. The next exit leads down a flight of helical stairs. As we descend, I feel it. Misery is a way of sticking to the walls with the echoes of unending hopelessness. The air tastes of salt and regret, of lost time, of death. We are entering a place of deep and enduring suffering, an agony so intense it has marked the place. Blood magic will work well here. It even smells like blood when we reach the landing, and the cause is easy to find. Beyond a glass pane, we find the bleeding room. The window is reinforced yet also perfectly transparent. It gives us a perfect view of the manacles, the tables, and the alchemical supplies required to draw and conserve that most potent of essence. Although the premises have been cleaned to a maniacal degree, a powerful perfume of anguish wafts through the reinforced door that bars our path. Unfortunately, none of the keys we have grant us access. I can break through, but it will trigger an alarm, I inform Sanayat with a whisper. He leans towards me and I catch his much more pleasant scent. It distracts me until I almost miss his next words. We should be fine for the alarm itself, but what about sound? I inspect the enchantment and realize that the alarm is, in fact, silent. All the better to catch a careless intruder off guard. A strand goes deeper into the facility, however. No, but I suspect the vampire will be alerted. This is it. Sanayat barely stops. Do it. The time for stealth has passed. I hope making us will be fine, though there should be very few threats left in the fortress. I open my bag to remove a dedicated piece of equipment, an enchanted tool designed to fragilize both the magical and the mundane at the place of effect, all while allowing me to make use of my great strength. Some uncharitable Luddite might call it a runt crowbar, but they would only show their ignorance and complete lack of decorum. It is, in fact, an advanced piece of arcane engineering. Or de-engineering. In any case, I place the flat end against the lock and dig. With a terrible shriek of twisted metal, it gives in. Sanayat and I wait for a few seconds within the bleeding chamber, but no one comes to stop us. Farther in, Sanayat whispers. I take the lead. The next gate is by far the most imposing in the entire fortress. Several layers of steel and silver block our path, yet before we can inspect it or rummage the room for credentials, it opens. The coppery taste of spent essence assails me. Then come the sounds of frantic hearts beating too fast to bring thin blood where it is needed, a constant effort that will never cease, for spent blood barely regenerates before it is harvested again. No moans break the calm before the storm, no complaints. The people inside are beyond despair. Even when I was under the thumb of Lady Moore and we kept cattle in cages like animals, we still did not treat them like those fair treated. Rows of cages with just a thin bed and a pot. No curtains, no intimacy of any kind. There are no personal effects in any of them, just different scratches on the walls, different marks on the unyielding bars. Light is dim and red, provided by a magical lamp drilled in the high ceiling. Their inhabitants all share the same elfin traits and peculiar traits as the Lycians I have met so far, but they are all sickly. Broken. Lying where they are in thin shifts. The most shocking detail is the cleanliness. It must take a lot of effort to keep such a corrupted place spotless, and yet there are no marks beyond the wear and tear. A colossal amount of attention and efforts are dedicated to making this atrocity as clinical as possible. I am disgusted and impressed in equal measure. And the architect behind this grand horror stands in the midst of it, next to a pillory and a strange board. He wears a full plate armor revealing his face and the dark blood staining his pale cheeks. Short blonde hair covers his scalp, and his jaw is locked in an expression of barely controlled rage. His blue eyes stare into mine, and in there I find a raging hatred that only death can end. It only takes me an instant to realize what has happened. Killed. We killed. We have killed a vassal. At least. I suppress the deep-seated feeling of horror gouging my chest. We have caused the unforgivable. No, it was not my design. It was my side. What have I done? No, I would have felt it. Then. Macius? Anger and horror war in my chest, a feeling I keep suppressed. He must not know. Or is secrecy even necessary? I intend to kill him after all. No. The other Lycians are watching. They could be captured again. I need to maintain the facade. I need to get it together. This was not my fault. My fault. I could have anticipated this. Too late. Too late, in any case. They are all watching now. A seeker of lost memories. A tall prisoner with thick black hair whispers with disbelief. So, you are Faye. I expected many things, but not that, the master says as he steps forward. Only now do I notice two more details. First, he wears a cross on his chest plate, something I find abhorrent. This will prove problematic. The second is the dangling corpse of a young man with a shocking flock of green hair hanging from his right hand, and that will prove even more problematic because I have seen what a vial of essence can do and this is considerably more potent. Has your species finally grown a spine? Sinead remains at the threshold, but I take a step forward then make sure that my knives are fastened. I would have preferred insane mages or suicidal Gabrielites. Now I will be punished for killing the two of you instead of capturing you to be drained. I considered letting you experience the fate of your brethren, but the very thought of you still drawing breath while my Ulrich lies in the ground proved unthinkable. I will very much enjoy killing you. Be careful, he is drunk on power, I tell Sinead, still in childlike Ian. I noticed. You fight him while I free our brethren. There is no choice but to kill him. You realize that, do you not? I do. I have killed a vampire for you before. The Fey prisoners gasp in amazement, and I realize that I should not say too much. Do you even understand the tongue? Probably not, you failed invaders. Bah, I will have to hear you begging in that incomprehensible babble. Enough of this. It begins. The master charges with a roar of pain and rage. I bring my axe out and intercept him. The blow lands fairly on the axe that he himself just deployed. A sole weapon, of course. He is so angry that he has not realized that I match him yet. I have a short window, perhaps. Guilty. No, I miss an opportunity to slam my weapon behind his knee when his next charge misses. Enough of this. Focus, Ariane, focus. We quickly move across the room. There is no cover here. Only flat ground and steel bars. And victims. Worse than cattle. A desecration of blood in the hunt. Pathetic. Yes, pathetic. He does not deserve to rule over this macabre farce of a feeding ground. Show the dominance of my way. A lunge of his proves to be a feint, one I do not take. He overextends and I slam my blade into his flank. He crashes against the nearest bars, armor cracked. Dark blood decorates my blade. Alas, he screams in rage and ignores the wound. It closes in front of my very eyes. Even Sivea's baleful enchantments can do little against the regenerative power of Fey blood. It will take a decisive blow or a significant amount of attrition to take him down. Our combat continues. I give ground and counter as soon as I get an opening, keeping my head cool and my aura suppressed. He is a better axe-wielder than I am, but I am a much better duelist overall. His positioning is reckless and his poise leaves many openings. I am faster and do not need to move much anyway. It is enough to push him into blunder after blunder. I finally manage to hamstring him, causing him to fall briefly. Unfortunately, he jumps back on his intact foot before I can capitalize on it. If I were to use my full power, it would be over in 2 moves. That is fine. A good huntress leaves her enemy a chance to prove themselves. So far, I am not impressed. Impossible. How can you keep up with me? You are strangers here. Invaders. I ignore his prattle and attack in turn. His armor is now more malformed metal than true protection, with half a dozen body blows denting it beyond salvation. I just need to be patient. Eventually, I smash him against a cage with a devastation counter. He hisses and grabs his key card, which was hanging from his neck. I will just take a little pick-me-up. Oh no, you will not. I take a step back to avoid a wild swing, then throw a knife at his flank. He rotates to let it slide along the armor while he opens the cage, eager to consume its occupant. The dagger explodes in a cloud of silvery magic. The master screams in pain and outrage. He lurches to the side. An opening. I jump in and smash the axe against his neck. It digs in. But not deep enough. In the name of God. A blue light. I resist hissing as the taste of ash fills my mouth and I slam on the ground, dazed. Ah! I have not been punished by that one for a long, long time. I cannot say that I missed it. Picking myself up from the ground, I stand back up with no hurry. The master has not moved. Meanwhile, Sinead still frees more like Ian's. You are one of us. But no, your appearance. Impossible. Did the eye grant one of you his essence? I was told that it was impossible. Unless. A progenitor? He shows every sign of shock, and I find myself appalled by his stupidity. If I were a progenitor, he would fit in a tree right now. No, you would have the power of the lords already. Intriguing. I cannot wait to drink you and learn everything, strange one. Perhaps we will converse before I kill you. By the Watcher, does that man love the sound of his voice? But wait. Yes, of course. He is drunk. I should have noticed it before, but I had never faced a drunken foe yet. He is riding the ecstasy of a shameful murder. I must use this. With a grim expression, I attack him and let him bat aside my counter. I slow down. It takes some effort to dodge just by a hair, to force my strikes to fall short by the most embarrassing margin. The master helps me with his complete lack of attention. I am managing a hurricane of confused strikes and all-out attacks. At a point, I am forced to capitalize on an error and crush his left arm, or he would have noticed my game. No matter what you are weak. Die. This is it. He accelerates and ignores his own defense. I step back. I retreat again. We pass Sinead, busy freeing one more panicked kin. The cat does not look, but I notice his smile. The master screams one last time. Your kind does not belong here, begone. I am pushed back once again, but barely. He was too far. He charges uncaring, ready to deliver the coup de grace. At the last moment, I arc my back. The sole weapon shrieks against the scales on my chest, but Surveyor's incredible craftsmanship shows its worth. The blade slides and jumps, diverted. At the same time, I throw my second knife where I knew his knee would be, the same knee I damaged earlier in the battle. My dagger finds a chink in his armor, blowing up the entire articulation. From the corner of my eye, I see the surprise when his leg fails him. The pain when he realizes why. I finish my arc and smash my axe into his wounded flank. He gasps. I jump on him and we fly across the room. Risky, but I cannot resist. A bite, as short as can be. Power. We are the guardians of this world, Samuel, and its bane. That is why we wield the symbol of the Lord, and why it will kill us in the end. He who lives by the sword, dies by the sword, but we cannot allow ourselves to fall until the last of the monsters has bitten the dust, or until Judgment Day. Do you understand? A clerical outfit. A hand on my shoulder. Yes, Father. I pull back from the vision and lick my lips in delight. It was short, but by the Watcher it was good. Kalinin essence. The ability to wield the tools of religion so long as one's cause is just. I wonder what I will retain. We crash at the far end of the room. The foe is dust. Good riddance. There is no time, puppet. We must leave. Yes, yes. The return to the surface is not as fast as I had hoped, even by ignoring the vampire's possessions. I still left another bomb in that accursed prison, despite the lack of urgency. That one is just for my own satisfaction. We find stairs up and end up in the inner courtyard where two bodies await, both dead. Making kneels by the nearest victim. He does not look relieved to see our slow procession. Do you have everything? Sinead asks. The false child assents, but his expression does not relax. Is something the matter? A convoy has come tonight. For new blood. A chill runs down my spine. This is bad luck, And a night convoy means more vampires. At least one. When will they arrive? I ask. They are already here. Behind me, the massive aura of a warlord flares. Tope continued,